Alright guys, so today we're going to be ranking all of the assault rifles in Black Ops 3 Zombies. I'm going to go over the 5 categories that I mentioned in my last video again quickly, which was maneuverability, magazine size, availability, pack-a-punch, damage, reload time, and recoil. Alright guys, so the 12 assault rifles we're going to be looking at today are the Stig 44, the Shiva, the MX Garand, the Man-O-War, the M8A7, the M16, the M14, the KN44, the ICR, nope, not the Haymaker, the HVK 30, the Galil, and the FFAR, and then that's it. Alright guys, so for the first section, maneuverability and mobility, the first one, the Stig, I'd give it a medium in mobility because you can run around with it, but it's not going to be super lightweight like if you were to hold a pistol or something else, but it's also not an LMG, so I'll put that at a medium. Next, the Shiva. The Shiva does have high mobility, so it's about equal to like the RK5 or another kind of pistol, so we'll give the Shiva a high in mobility. As for the MX Garand, I believe that the mobility is medium and then turns to high when it's papped. That's the case with some weapons, so it'll be harder to carry when it's unpapped, but then you pap it and somehow it makes the weapon lighter, which I have no idea how that makes any sense, but it does. Like, if you're going to add attachments, you'd think it would be heavier, but whatever. So the MX Garand gets a high in mobility when it's papped, and medium when it's not. The Man-O-War has medium mobility unpapped, and then high mobility when papped, just like the MX Garand, so I guess that's another case of that. The M8A7 has the exact same as the other two, medium mobility unpapped, and then high mobility papped. The M16 actually does have a medium mobility, but then a high mobility when it's papped, same as the last one. And the M14. So the M14 has a high mobility when it's unpapped and when it's papped, I believe. So you can run pretty fast with it. It's a little bit faster than the M16, I think, the last one I talked about. It's about equal to the RK5. I think it's equal to the Shiva as well. The KN44 has a moderate mobility or a medium mobility when it's unpapped again, and then when it's papped it has a high mobility. And then the ICR, it has a medium mobility again unpapped, and then a high mobility papped. I guess this is the case for a lot of assault weapons. The HVK has medium mobility unpapped, high mobility papped, and the Galil has a medium mobility when it's unpapped, and then a medium mobility when it's papped as well. So that one doesn't increase in lightness, I guess, when it's papped like the other assault rifles do. The FFAR has a medium mobility when it's unpapped, and then high when it's papped, which is, again, weird to me, but I guess that makes sense. And that's going to end the maneuverability and mobility section of the video. So far, the Shiva is the only one that's had super high mobility, and the M14 is close behind it with high mobility, but I'd say a little bit less than the Shiva. And then all the weapons that had moderate mobility unpapped and then high mobility papped are after that. And then the Galil, I think it's the only one that I said that has medium mobility both ways, unless I'm wrong about that. Or no, just the Galil, I believe. Alright guys, so finally, now that maneuverability and that mobility section is done, we're going to be talking about the damage on each assault rifle, and I'm going to be doing this section just a little bit differently than I did last video, just because I feel like I wasn't really clear enough with the way that I was saying things. So when I'm listing all the assault rifles and the damage that I think that they put out, I'm going to be putting a level out of 5, so 1 being the lowest and then 5 being the highest in damage. And I'm just going to be going through and rating them out of 5, and then at the end I'll stack them all up at the end. Instead of giving you like a result after each section of the video, I'm going to be doing it at the very end. So for starting off with the KN44, the damage gets a solid 2.5 out of 5. The HVK gets a 2 out of 5 in damage. The ICR gets a 1.5 out of 5 in damage. The Man of War gets a 3 out of 5 in damage. The Shiva gets a 4 out of 5 in damage. The M8A7 gets a 1.5 out of 5 in damage. The STG gets a 2.5 out of 5 in damage. The MX Garen gets a 2.5 out of 5 in damage as well. The what else? The M16 gets a 1 out of 5 in damage, being is that if you get past around round 10, honestly, the M16's damage drop-off sucks. Even papped, I mean, the only way you could really use this in a high round strategy is if you get Deadwire, and to be honest with you, even that's not that good. You have a bunch of other choices that are better, like the KN-44 because it's on the wall or something. So that's always something to think about. I think I've covered all the weapons for damage. No, the M14's damage is decent. It's a little bit better than the M16's. I think it's around probably a 3 out of a possible 5. As for the Galil and the FFAR, the Galil gets a solid 3 out of 5, and the FFAR also gets a solid 3 out of 5. Now, keep in mind that with this damage category, I don't want you guys yelling at me in the comments like, oh, the Shiva got a 4 out of 5, what the heck? It's because it's so, like, since it's single shot, even a fully auto machine gun like the ICR that got less than the Shiva, it's because it's shot for shot. So if the Shiva shoots like 5 bullets in the same amount of time that the ICR shoots like 30, then obviously the ICR is going to have a higher damage output, even though I said the Shiva per shot has a 4 out of 5 damage. It's really just based on how much you shoot in a certain span of time. Alright guys, now we're going to be talking about magazine size and magazine size papped and how big the difference is. So I'm going to be combining the magazine size and the Pack-a-Punch upgrade section into one for this video. So to start things off, we're going to be talking about the STG-44, and the magazine size unpapped is 30 rounds with a capacity of 210 bullets with a magazine of 30. Pack-a-Punched, the Spats 447 has a magazine size of 60 and a capacity of 330, so the magazine size did increase by ×2, which is really good. The Shiva, the Shiva's capacity is 100 with a magazine size of 10, and Pack-a-Punch, this turns into 30 magazine and 270 capacity, which is, to be honest, a pretty good increase in magazine, ×3. That's pretty impressive. And 100 to 270, that's also impressive. It sucks that this gun is pretty shit. Like, if this gun were good, that would be a really good increase. The only way I could see someone actually upgrading this and doing that for the magazine capacity is if they were to get Deadwire with it, but even that might be a lost cause. Talking about the MX Garen now, the magazine size is 8 and the max ammo capacity is 160. Now, one thing to note with this weapon is actually that you cannot reload mid-magazine. So if you're gonna, it's similar to the Thunder Gun in the way that if you shoot a couple bullets and you want to reload, you're gonna have to shoot off the rest of the clip, which is kind of a shame, but to be honest, as long as you have speed cola, you're all good. Now upgraded, this gun's magazine capacity goes kind of nuts. It goes from being 8 to 30, and the max capacity of 160 goes to 300. So the magazine capacity is upgraded by more than ×3, which is very good. And even the capacity gets quite an upgrade of almost 2 times. Now talking about the Man of War, the magazine size is 30 default and 270 in the capacity. And when it's upgraded, it goes from having a 30 magazine to a 40 magazine, and from having 270 capacity to 440 capacity, which, to be honest, is not very overwhelming. I mean, 30 to 40 magazine isn't great, and 270 to 440 rounds in the capacity is also not too great. I guess they just didn't want to make this weapon too OP because it fires pretty slowly and it has a lot of damage output if you're really going to focus on a horde, so they didn't want you to have too much time without being able to reload. Moving on to the M8A7, the magazine capacity is 32 with a max ammo capacity of 256, and then upgraded this turns into 48 instead of the default magazine capacity of 32, and 480 in the capacity instead of the 256 mentioned before. This is honestly pretty underwhelming, same as the Man of War, to be honest, because the magazine doesn't even increase by 1.5, and the capacity is a good change. It's almost 2 times, which is good, but to be honest, still kind of underwhelming. Now moving on to the M16. So this max ammo with the default weapon, it has a 30 magazine clip with a 240 capacity, and then when you upgrade it, get this, it goes from having a 30 magazine capacity to having a 30 magazine capacity with, instead of 240 capacity, it now has 300, so this is a pretty shitty upgrade, it's fair to say. The M16 is not only weak, it also just has a terrible ammo capacity when it's upgraded, and that's what the majority of a Pack-a-Punch upgrade is. Like, you don't typically upgrade for Pack-a-Punch too much for damage. I mean, it's good if you get an additional 1.5 or whatever, but you typically just upgrade it because you know that you're going to get basically double the amount of ammo. Well, in this gun, it's only an additional 60 bullets, so that's a big fat screw you to anyone who has the M16 and upgrades it. Now, moving on to the M14, so the magazine size is 8, and the max ammo capacity in the default weapon is 104. Upgraded, this turns into a magazine capacity of 16 and a max ammo capacity of 208. So it just increases by 2 times, which is good. That's just a decent upgrade. I wouldn't say that's perfect, but it's good. Now, moving on to the KN-44. The magazine size unpapped is 30 with a capacity of 210 on the default weapon. And papped, this turns into a 50 magazine with a 350 capacity, which is a decent upgrade. Goes from 30 to 50 in the mag, that's pretty good, and a 210 capacity to 350, that's not too bad. Next up is the ICR. The magazine size unpapped is 30 with a 210 capacity, so that's honestly not too much ammo, because I find myself, whenever I buy the ICR, I find myself wondering where all the ammo went, especially with double tap, because honestly they just don't provide enough ammo. And then PAP, this solves the problem a little bit, but then I want to make a comparison later, which I'll show you what I mean by this. So the magazine capacity goes from being 30 to 45 PAP'd, and then the default capacity goes from being 210 to 360. Now, what I was talking about is here. The HVK unpapped has a 30 mag with a 300 capacity. That is near what the ICR has papped, so that's really unfortunate. If the Treyarch team had looked into that a little bit further, maybe they would have changed that, but they might just be trash, so yeah. The HVK, let's talk about this. So the HVK has a 30 mag, and this turns into 60 when you pap it, and the capacity goes from being 300 to 480, which is an incredible amount of bullets for an assault rifle. If the damage were just as high as the Man of War, it would be a perfect gun, but it's just a little bit low. But regardless, the PAP to having a double magazine size is great, and the capacity magazine size is great. The Galil, so the magazine size is 35 unpapped with a capacity of 315, and the PAP version has a 35 magazine, so that doesn't increase at all, but the capacity increases to 490 rather than 315, so that's a pretty good capacity increase, but it is really unfortunate for the Galil that the Lamentation doesn't have a magazine increase. That's a shame. So moving on to the final weapon in the ammo capacity or PAP upgrade section is the FFAR, and this goes from having, get this, a magazine capacity of 30 to a magazine capacity of 90 PAP. That literally means that it turns into an LMG. Like I was talking about this in one of my previous streams, literally turns into an LMG, bro. Now, the capacity size is a little unfortunate. It only goes from having 390 capacity to 450, but to be honest with you, even the default weapon unpapped, it has an insane amount of ammo with it. Like, that's literally more than the ICR has after it's papped, the default weapon of the FFAR. So yeah, that's it for the ammo capacity and upgrade. Alright guys, so now we're going to be talking about the recoil and the reload speed and the availability of all of the weapons mentioned before. Now, for the first one, I just want to talk about reload time first. I'm going to do the same thing that I did in my damage evaluation of the weapons, where I give it a possible score out of 5, and then I kind of move on with each weapon, kind of evaluating the damage per shot. This time we're going to do that, but with reload speed. So starting off with the STG-44, I'm going to give the reload speed a possible 2.5 out of 5 in reload speed, because it's decent, but it's not great. Moving on to the Shiva, I'm going to give that a 3 out of 5 in reload time, because it does get the job done. I mean, unless you're going to fire all the bullets and have to cock it back, that takes a little bit longer, but all the weapons do, so it doesn't really matter. The MX Garand, I'm going to give this a 2 in reload speed, because you can't reload it mid-weapon, so that's kind of the big turnoff for this gun. But the reload speed isn't too bad when you do fire off all the bullets. It's not great if you don't have speed cooled, though, I'm just going to say that. So the Man of War reload speed, I'm going to give it a possible 2 out of 5. It's okay. It does take a little while to reload, comparable to something like the Dingo in reload time. Like it is a little bit slower. It's more comparable to an LMG's reload. Moving on to the M8A7, the reload time, I'm going to give a 3 out of 5 because it does reload fairly quickly, especially if you don't fire all the bullets and cock it back. The M16, I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5 in reload time, because as long as you don't fire off all the bullets and you have to cock it back, this one reloads super quick. You just pop the mag in. The M14, I'm going to give the reload speed a 3 out of 5 because it's decent, again, but it's not perfect. The KN44, well, I always use this gun with fast mag, and with fast mag it would be a 5, but without fast mag I'm going to give this a 3 out of 5 because it's decent again, but it's not perfect. But my suggestion to you is that if you're going to prestige, unlock this weapon permanently and then get the fast mag on it, because it just makes it OP, and since it's available on nearly every single map, you will always find a use for it on the wall. Now moving on to the ICR. The ICR's reload is pretty good. I'd also give this a 3 out of 5 because it's not perfect, but it's pretty good, it's pretty efficient. If you're going to fire off all the bullets, I'd give it a 2.5 because it does take a while if you're going to cock it back. HVK, 3.5 out of 5. It reloads a tiny bit faster than the ICR, I believe. The Galil, I'm going to give that a 3 out of 5 because it's decent, not great. The FFAR, I'm going to give this a 4.5 out of 5 because it does reload very quickly. And considering when you upgrade it, it has a 90 magazine, the upgrade animation literally stays the same, if not gets faster when it's papped. So think about that for a second. You used to have a 30 magazine, and then it turns into 90, and the reload speed doesn't even stay the same, it literally gets faster. So I'm going to give that a 4.5 out of a possible 5 for the FFAR. Alright guys, so next I think we're going to talk about the recoil next, and then the last thing that we'll talk about is going to be availability. Now for the recoil of the STG, it's low. For the recoil of the Shiva, it is low. For the recoil of the MX Garand, it is also low. For the recoil of the Man of War, it is medium. For the recoil of the M8A7, I'd say it would probably be medium to high, maybe medium. For the recoil of the M16, I'd say it's medium. The recoil of the M14, low. The recoil of the KN44, medium. Recoil for the ICR, low. Recoil for the HVK, medium. The recoil for the Galil, low. The recoil for the FFAR, medium. And then now we're going to talk about availability, guys. So some of the weapons that I've mentioned in this video so far have only been on certain maps. So some of these weapons are only available on certain Chronicles maps. Look, so for example, the STG-44 is only available on the Chronicles maps Noct, Verrückt, Shi-No-Numa, and that's it. And Origins, sorry. Origins, Noct, Verrückt, and Shi-No-Numa, the STG is only available on those maps. And I believe that the FFAR is the exact same. So the FFAR is only available on Gorod Krovi, Kino der Toten, Ascension, Shangri-La, and Moon. The M14 and the M16 and the MX Garand have similar traits as well. The MX Garand is only available on Noct and Verrückt, Shi-No-Numa, and that's it. So there's even no Origins there. It's just Noct, Verruct, Shinonuma, and Zetsubo and Grodkrovi. And then for the M16 and the M14, the M16 is available on Kino, Ascension, Shangri-La, and Moon, and it comes out of the mystery box. You can't buy it on the wall. As for the M14 is only available on Kino, Ascension, Shangri-La, Moon, and Origins. And those are all the map-specific weapons. So next we're going to be moving on to actually, are these guns wall buyable and in how many maps? So the STG is available off the wall in Origins and Verruct, I believe, and Shinonuma. So it is pretty available. The STG is pretty available in Chronicles and Origins as well. The Shiva, very available in nearly every starting room. I think it is available in every starting room. The MX Garand is only out of the box, and it's only out of the box in, I believe, 5 maps, so that's not very available. Man of War, only available out of the box in every map, I believe. The M8A7 is available on the wall in Der Eisendrache and Shadows of Evil, and it's available out of the box in any map, I believe. The M16 is only available out of the mystery box in Zombies Chronicles, and then the M14 is only available in the box in certain maps, like I mentioned before. The KN-44 is available in Shadows of Evil, The Giant, Horizon Drax, Zetsubo Nushima, Grodkrovi, and Revelations, and it can be found on the wall in several of the Chronicles maps, so it's very available. Same as the Shiva. I'd say they're probably the closest to being always available, the Shiva and the KN. Now, moving on to the ICR. The ICR is available on the wall in a few maps. It's available on the wall in the remaster of Kino and Verruct, I believe, and Origins, Grodkrovi, and Zetsubo. And it's available in the box, obviously. Now, the HVK is available in a couple of Zombies maps in the game, and it's not only on the wall, so you can get it in the box too, but it's on the wall in some of the maps, I believe, one of which being Origins, I believe. The Galil is not available on the wall at all. I wish it was, because it's amazing, but it's only available in the mystery box in certain maps. The FFAR is like that in the fact that it is only available in the mystery box and not on the wall. So evaluating all of these different sections, availability, blah, 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 etc., I'm going to come up with a final result, which I'll show you guys in a few seconds. Thanks for watching.